Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Chelmsford Tonight. This is the show where we focus on the people and places that make Chelmsford and the surrounding areas such a great place to live and work. I'm Karen Woodrow, owner of Visiting Angels Senior Home Care right here in Chelmsford, and I'll be your host. On tonight's show, we're featuring 3 local filmmakers. This isn't an award show, we don't have a red carpet, we're not having a scuttlebutt amongst our performers. What we do have are 3 filmmakers who had a story to tell and used a video camera to bring it to life. Our first guests are Matt Scott and Pat Maloney. Matt was the former director of Chelmsford TeleMedia and our dear producer Pete Pedulla's boss, I hear. And Pat Maloney is a Chelmsford resident. He is on the Permanent Buildings Committee, and he is the owner-operator of Architectural Environments, a construction management firm specializing in life sciences and pharmaceutical industries. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here.
So the video that you produced was an experiential video about a transatlantic sail that you did from St. Martin to Gibraltar on a 53-foot boat called the Brava. And I think that Pat, you are a videographer and you enjoy having a camera in your hand, and you were like, great, I'm gonna bring this video camera and film our trip. But what was just a fun vacation video turned into a pretty horrendous documentary about your journey. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, from my point of view, yeah, all my filming and videography was through my phone, and so my thing was just to document the experience. So once or twice a day, I would kind of step up and say, okay, good morning, as I'm about to get on watch or get off watch, because we did 2.5-hour watches apiece as we were out in the middle of the Atlantic. So, so my thing was just each day to just document a few minutes of, hey, here's where we think we're at today, and here's what I'm seeing. And,
okay, so like a little bit of a video journal of your trip.
Yep.
But let's take a look at the intro to the documentary that you ended up putting together because of what happened on your trip.
On a small sailboat is an exercise in space limitations. The ocean seems vast, endless, and yet as the boat moves further and further from land, we have become smaller. We are quarantined. Our space is limited. The bow berth is tight and crampy. As radio and cell connections dissolve into the ether of distance, the sense of confinement is obvious. There is no going for a walk to take in the air. A swim in the middle of the ocean is a dive and kick to oblivion. As the swell builds, we will be attached with lines and straps, limiting our space sense of freedom. Even more, we are on a sailing boat in the middle of the ocean at the mercy of currents and winds. A speck in the ocean. Our whole world is now this 53-foot boat. We are confined and yet totally free. We are sailing the ocean and there are no roads or stoplights.
So that was Matt's voice that we heard narrating the adventure. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who owns the boat, who else was on the crew? Tell us about your journey.
Derek Gates bought the boat. He bought the boat upon retirement, and I believe he was a sailor for the Yale sailing team,
so
right?
He sailed for Yale, and he grew up sailing in the Bahamas.
Right.
That's where he grew up. So,
and he basically had a dream, and he got on Amal 53, which is a French-built ketch, and it's what they would call a blue water boat. It's great for the ocean and can handle almost any weather, and we went through a lot of weather with it. And it's a tough boat, and it's for crossing oceans.
And you guys volunteered to join him on this journey?
we did Always Up for an Adventure. So Derek was looking for crew, and we signed on for that. And we did a lot of preparation prior to. We did a lot of sailing prior to leaving, and a lot of work on the boat to ready the boat to cross the Atlantic.
Okay, and you had a fourth member to your crew. It was you two, Derek, and
Russ Osborne, who's a great sailor. He had lived on a boat before this for about a year and a half in
Russ is from British Columbia,
Yeah.
so he's a little far away to join us on
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
But we stay in touch, and we hope to do something like this again one of these days.
yeah, absolutely.
So we to take a look at the journey that you took. We have a map of the mileage that you covered. You started in St. Martin.
We did. We started in St. Martin, and we were planning on heading for Gibraltar by way of the Azores. I will tell you the quick story. Prior to getting to the Azores, we were about 800 or 1,000 miles, nautical miles out from the Azores, and I was on watch, and I think it's actually my footage from that morning is part of the documentary. But quickly, I was on watch, and so Russ came up to relieve me. It was about 5:30 in the morning, and so he went out to fix something that was clanking all night on the boat. And so he came in and he took a seat in the cockpit, and just as I'm about to unclip and hand the helm over, Russ yells wave, and we looked and went, ooh. And before we knew it, we were totally over. You know, the sails touched the water, and we got thrown pretty good, and Russ was not clipped in at the time, so he was able to grab the halyard and hang on for dear life, and was like hanging in midair to
Wow.
stay on the boat. And with those kind of seas that you saw, had he gone over, we probably would likely not have found him. But so that was our treachery for the most part of the trip. And,
Wow.
And what happened shortly after, because the hatch was open, because he was coming up and I was about to go down when the wave hit us, the wave went inside the boat, doused all the navigation equipment. So within an hour, we lost all our electronics. And so it ended up being a pretty interesting day, right, Matt?
Oh,
yeah.
So we have a clip of the video piece that you said that you shot of the rough part. So
okay.
viewers, get out your Dramamine and take a look at this interesting time on their journey.
You could see water just pouring in. The whole cockpit had filled up like a hot tub and was just cascading down the companionway stairs into the cabin here. And so I just yelled down, all hands on deck.
And a couple of squalls come through. And I saw them on radar. I knew they were coming. I tried to steer to avoid them.
We got some very, very high seas right now. And obviously some high winds. So we're moving along, but it's not without taking a thrashing. So. And it's getting very cold.
So that wasn't really what you meant to happen on this trip. I think what you meant to happen was more like this video we have of the dolphins playing in the water.
Yeah,
Let's take a look at that one just
okay.
for the contrast. So I think this was the original intent of your trip, just to enjoy nature and be out there and not
exactly
to end up
it.
soaking your navigation equipment.
But we can't do anything without some kind of adventure.
Right, yeah.
But
No, but seeing the dolphins, that was magic too, you know. It's,
So
you know.
how long did the trip take you from beginning to end?
So it was 14 days from St. Martin to the Azores, and then we planned to just stay a couple of days in the Azores and be off to Gibraltar, but we were there for 10 days waiting to get equipment fixed and all of the electronics taken care of again. So
Fortunately, the Azores are gorgeous.
yeah, so we didn't
And you got your land legs back, and you were
Yeah,
able to
oh,
enjoy
that was
it.
so nice.
And then from there, we left 10 days later and headed for Gibraltar, and that took 8 more days. So total of about 21, 22 days, I think.
And did you get to enjoy Gibraltar at the end of the trip?
You betcha.
Yeah, it was nice to hit land and you know, successfully have it crossed.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's great, a successful transatlantic sail. I'm glad Derek's dream came true and he found a crew to join him. Where's the boat now?
the boat's currently in Pariseau, Greece. So the plan was that year, I left the boat right when we got to Gibraltar, but they stayed on and did some more sailing. I went back some weeks later and we did some more sailing in the Med, so we were fortunate enough to see things like Stromboli erupting from the boat, some just magnificent things
great
happening.
video of that.
Yeah, and so we were scheduled to go back in 2020, and COVID hit, and we couldn't do that. So Derek and I got back last year for about 6 weeks. We got the boat out of Pariseau. ran up to Montenegro, did Croatia for 6 weeks.
Go by Dubrovnik.
Yep. And,
was there a problem going into any of the ports during the COVID time or anything like that? Or?
No, it had just gone down. We had like a 6-week break. We timed it perfectly. We got in and we got out before.
Okay, and then Delta came after.
And then Delta came. But so we tucked that in. So the boat's currently back in Pariseau now and waiting for the next journey, and we'll see what that brings.
All right, so we'll have a Brava 2 video that you'll be sharing with us shortly.
Oh, geez, there we go.
Money shot we never got.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
That's the one thing we were missing on the boat.
The sky view of the guy hanging on to for dear life. Well,
I can see Pat reaching at the bow of the boat trying to grab that drone as it's coming down.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys survived and you're dry now and that it was a successful trip, and thank you for sharing the documentary with us. And we'll be right back with our next filmmaker and Warren-Pohl Farm. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. What a great show.
This beautiful gem comes into the Warren family in the year 1699.
The property was owned by the Warren family for over 300 years.
It was a wedding gift. And since that point until the year 2020, farmed as a farm during those years. Summertime was the best time because we'd get on the tractors and we would mow and ted and rake and bale. And we did that for many, many years, and it soon became evident that our 1940s farm-all tractors weren't quite able to keep up, and neither were we.
That was a clip from an episode of Sustainable Chelmsford, featuring Warren-Pohl Farm and hosted by Becky Warren, who had a longtime Chelmsford resident who had the great fortune of growing up on that farm with generations of the Warren family. With me to talk about the making of that episode is CTN producer and filmmaker Dianne, let me get your name right, Sherratt-Steimel. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Thank you for joining me, Dianne. It's so nice to finally get to talk to you. I see you as we're running around the studio.
Passing.
Right, exactly. So I finally get to sit down and talk to you. And I really enjoyed that episode of Sustainable Chelmsford because it was a beautiful space. And now that we're talking about filmmaking, we get to talk about the details of that film that you made. There's sweeping landscapes, there's close-up pictures of trees with mushrooms growing on it, there's little trickles of the waterway. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you made that episode and what it was like to film it?
Well, I wanted to make it because I wanted to learn more about it. I thought, here's this fabulous property. It's right in the center of town. I wanted to hear about the family, and Becky's she's great, right?
She is great to talk to.
She's just great. And she told me all these different stories, and I thought I hadn't read about this. I thought this should kind of be on the record. Everyone should know this fabulous thing, and it's such a win-win that the town were to get this property and that we would get this history. Not every town has that. So that's why I wanted to make it. And then, to get out there with Becky and kind of tromping along. She's like, make sure you bring your boots. I'm like, okay. You don't wear your nice shoes because it, was muddy and whatever. But it was just beautiful. And it was exactly what I wanted. I wanted to find out more, and then I wanted to share it with everyone.
So what we learned from that show is that this farm had been in the Warren family for generations, and one day it just got too big for them, and the town said, can we, if you're ever willing to give up this land, can we take it? And now it's just a beautiful place for people to go and enjoy. And I think we have some still pictures of what's going on there now with the wildlife. I think what I'm learning a lot about this time is the beaver activity. And so you were able to focus in on some of the wildlife and the trees and the homes of a beaver and just different.
Yeah. Becky took me over to where the beavers had affected the farm. So, once people stopped interfering with nature, nature moved right on in. And the beavers said, this is a great place. And, they created a pond. And she showed me where you could see the teeth where they were just, cutting down the trees. And, you see in books and you see on little plaques, nature is here. And you see, little pictures, but you don't often see the actual signs, right? You don't actually see where the teeth, where they were, chewing down the trees and making their little beaver houses and whatnot. And I just thought, what a wonderful thing for the town. Right in the middle of town, you don't have to drive all the way out someplace. Right. You could just, it's right there. It's right there.
So we got to see the farm through your video making. So tell us a little bit about the actual making of your video. You've brought some props, which are always fun. Take us through your filmmaking journey and what equipment you use to do it.
Well, I'm really excited about filmmaking because it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to go and gather, $100,000 and, get the permission from somebody who's a gatekeeper to make something, a documentary, a show, whatever you want to do. You can do it. You could do it with, an iPhone. You can do it. We've got big cameras here. I kind of got tired of lugging around the big cameras. And so I have my little camera. So this is a GH4. So this is actually an old camera. This is, they just came out with the GH6, but it's a very, very good camera. And you can see it's just small. It looks like a regular camera. You don't know that it's necessarily for making film, but it really is. And I have my whole kit, fits in a backpack.
And you brought the backpack.
I brought the I'm not gonna
hold it up.
Hold it up.
So
backpack.
all of the filmmaking equipment that Dianne uses fits into this little backpack.
Fits into my backpack. And you see I've got my tripod here. It all fits. I can go on a plane. It slides right onto the seat in front of me. I don't even get a hard time from anybody about, having an oversized bag. And so I've got lights in there. I've got, microphones, very, very small. It has a little magnet, so, I don't have to have a wire, something, So with very simple equipment, you can go and you can tell your story. And it's such a powerful thing, I think, to tell your story.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
We're fortunate that you wanted to tell that story of the Warren-Pohl Farm. It was very enjoyable. Do you have a project that you're working on or that's, filtering in your brain? You said I know, you can tell us about that, but I love the story of your husband traveling across country and how you wanted to film that a little bit.
Well, that was when I started making documentaries. He retired, and he said that he was going to buy an old VW bus and travel across the country. And I said, you never told me about that. And then I said, well, here's a camera and here's a shot list and we're going to make a documentary. And so we did it. It was just such fun. Because I wasn't going to get in that thing. I wasn't going to get in that thing. And I told you that I told him, I'll join you wherever there's a nice hotel and spa. Right. I tried one night to spend the night to get some shots, and I couldn't do it. I went home.
Well, I'm glad that you documented some of it, and I'm really glad that you're using your love of storytelling with a video camera and sharing it with us in Chelmsford. We really appreciate it. Thanks for all the work you do on Chelmsford TeleMedia, and thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
We'll be back after this break. Our final filmmaker tonight is Allen Beebe, a longtime CTM volunteer, and he is going to share with us the story of Stony Brook, which he profiled in a 1995 video. Welcome, and thank you for joining me, Allen.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So it's nice to have you. So in 1995, you did a profile of Stony Brook, and you did it as a VHS, and we know that it's sort of dating us, right? Times have changed. The filming is much different now. And as a matter of fact, Matt Scott, who was in our transatlantic sail piece in segment 1, was your cameraman on that shoot.
Of it, yes.
So that's great, sort of the history repeating itself. So let's take a look at the intro to your 1995 video, and we'll talk about it after that.
Hi, my name is Allen Beebe. I'm a volunteer member of Chelmsford's Community TV. In addition, I belong to the Stony Brook Watershed Association, an organization promoting watershed management and public awareness through education and stream-side activities. I'm your host for this trip down the Stony Brook. As we travel downstream, we'll journey through time towards the future as we explore the past and the present of Stony Brook.
So Alan, tell us, what inspired you to make that video back then?
Well, at that time, actually in 1993, a man named Warren Bickford, who was the a commissioner in the Mass DEP Fisheries and Wildlife Group, he retired in 1991, and he started working with the Massachusetts Watershed Coalition to try and organize groups of people in different watersheds around Massachusetts. The most notable one that we have in our area is the Nashua River Watershed Association, and also the larger, older Merrimack River Watershed Coalition, of which Stony Brook, the Stony Brook watershed, is a part of.
So the Stony Brook is a tributary of the Merrimack River, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So he placed ads in the then Chelmsford Independent and the Westford Eagle, and he organized a group of meetings for people in Littleton, Westford, Chelmsford, to see if they could form one of these little watershed groups. So tangential to that is this other program called Adopt a Stream, pretty much to promote education and community awareness of your watershed.
So what's the importance of Stony Brook for the Chelmsford and the surrounding areas?
So the Stony Brook has its origins in Boxborough. It flows as a small brook called Beaver Brook into Forge Pond in Westford. And then the outlet of Forge Pond becomes the Stony Brook. So
and that serves as drinking water for the area?
Yes, it supplies, the watershed supplies drinking water for Littleton, Westford, and for Chelmsford.
And it also has a big historical...
That's correct. Because it was a stream near the Lowell area, and probably there was a lot of fast-moving water, or where there wasn't, a number of entrepreneurs at that time in the 1700s, 1800s, built dams and created various mills or other kind of operations.
So it once powered a manufacturing mill that manufactured swords for the Civil War, and we have a video of what that looks like now. It's interesting to see sort of the nature flowing around the ruins of that manufacturing plant.
So that's the Roby Manufacturing Company. It's it made a number of things, actually scythes for harvesting wheat or whatever, grass. But in the Civil War period, it manufactured swords for the, I think a lot of them went to the Confederate Army, but the Union Army had them also. Bernie Reddy, a very long time Chelmsford resident, was nice enough to show me these swords and give me the whole history of the location.
So Stony Brook really has served a huge function for the town of Chelmsford. And this video was done in 1995, and I understand that you are doing a film now about Stony Brook.
We're going to try and update it to show at least the natural succession that's occurred in some places. Natural succession is where there are slow parts of the stream, slow flow. Sediment will accumulate, and then plants will start to grow, and eventually the plants are succeeded by larger plants such as trees, and then it becomes a meadow or woodland. So I think there's enough to show those kind of changes.
Sure, so it's Stony Brook yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We do have a video of you down at the Stony Brook showing a little bit about what's happening there now. Let's take a look at that.
In 2005, the Stony Brook underpass, where the stream goes underneath Route 3, was updated. So the embankment is all new, the cement causeway underneath is all new to improve the flow of the water.
So it looks beautiful. Who manages it now?
There isn't really any management other than maybe the Conservation Commission checking on if they get reports of some kind of issues. The railroad tracks, which you may have seen a little bit of, that run along the brook. One of the unfortunate things is it has an access road for maintenance, and there have been times when people will go down it and dump all kinds of stuff, everything from car parts to shingles. To
so we'll have to include it in our Chelmsford cleanup day and make sure we take care of that valuable space.
Somebody did do some cleanup there. From the last time I was there, there was all kinds of debris. And when we were down in this area, it was all gone, except for a snowmobile.
So do you see a bright future for Stony Brook?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a robust stream with lots of habitat for all kinds of wildlife, amphibians, fish, aquatic plants. One interesting thing is in a lot of other lakes, ponds, and some streams, an invasive plant called water chestnut is quite prevalent. Yeah. Here in the Stony Brook, I haven't seen that. The only invasive submerged aquatic plant that I've seen is this water milfoil. But also there's another plant, well, two plants, loosestrife, purple loosestrife, and this other plant that looks very tall and like pampas grass, Phragmites. Those two invasive species are becoming very prevalent in the quiet water areas.
All right, well, thank you for sharing your Stony Brook film with us, and we look forward to version 2. Thanks for joining me, Allen.
Thank you.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. If you're a local filmmaker or dying to get your hand on a camera and tell us your story, please contact Chelmsford TeleMedia. CTM has the equipment, we have the training, and we have a support network of people who would love to help you bring your story to life. Thanks to my crew, Karen, Bob, and Dee. We'll see you next time on Chelmsford Tonight. Have a good night, everybody.